Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of SEC Power Rankings. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and let's jump right into it. Number 16, Mississippi State. Not much else to say about this team. They've made progress. They found the quarterback of the future. They have some nice weapons on the outside, but they are still the worst team in the SEC. But not by a lot. I thought there'd be a gap between the worst team this year and then the second worst. There isn't. I think there's a group here of two, and then it kind of jumps up a little bit. Number 15 is Kentucky. I think they're in this group too. They have been by far the most disappointing team to me. I think them and Auburn have completely disappointed this year, and it doesn't make much sense to me, but it is what it is. I don't really see this Kentucky team getting much better. They truly missed on Brock Vandagriff. I thought he would be much better this year, and he just isn't. And I think that's the case with a lot of these transfer quarterbacks. You've seen them hit and miss. You've seen that at Florida State. You've seen that at Kentucky. You've seen that with Peyton Thorne 2 years in a row at Auburn. And I actually take that back. I would have Auburn in this group as well. I think Auburn, Kentucky, and Mississippi State, you throw them in a bag. I don't know who wins. Like, if you play a round robin there, I think they could all go 1-1 versus each other. Auburn, again, completely missed on Peyton Thorne. You finally have weapons on the outside with Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman, Keandre Lambert-Smith, but you don't have the guy to get him there. They also have a pretty good tight end as well. Offensive line's not great, but it's good enough. Defense is pretty good as well. They just completely let me down here, and honestly, it puts Hugh Freeze right on that hot seat to begin next year, because if he does not produce, if they don't win 8 or 9 games, I think Hugh Freeze gets fired. Right now, what's saving him, honestly, is that really good recruiting class coming in, and he's able to keep that. And he's not going to have any excuses if he fails with that recruiting class, honestly. So it's going to be interesting what happens. Number 13, I'm going to have the Oklahoma Sooners here. I don't really think I thought Joe John Finley was the answer here, but he clearly isn't. It's going to be interesting what happens from here on out with Joe John Finley. If they try to go find someone else, or he is the answer here, but who knows who will take that job. I know I've heard Dan Mullen out there. Do I believe Dan Mullen wants to come out of retirement and possibly take this job? Maybe. I think it would have to be a lot of money for Dan Mullen to take this job. We're talking $3 million a year. I don't see any way in which he takes anything less than that. I still don't know who your quarterback is. Jackson Arnold has gotten better since the beginning of the year, but not much. Michael Hawkins, to me, I think he's gone at this point. I think he transfers. I think you've handled that terribly. I think you've handled the quarterback situation terribly as a whole. And I do not think, and I know Texas fan, you're going to say, oh, you just because you're a Texas fan. I don't think Brett Venables is there long-term. I really don't. I don't think he's that good of a coach. I think he's a fantastic coordinator, and I think he's been promoted to his incompetence level, and I think you're going to see that. I think he'll be gone after next year, in my opinion. I think they should just fire him now, to be perfectly honest. I don't think they will, but we'll see what happens there. Number 12, I have Missouri. I think they're going to be the worst 9-3 team I have ever seen. Listen, Brady Cook is like your biggest bright spot of this team, and that says a lot, because Brady Cook is basically Max Duggan. Luther Burden, too. Theo Weiss is very good wide receiver, but the defense isn't good enough. We saw that versus South Carolina. What is it, 50-something seconds left? You let them drive down the field and score a touchdown rather easily, honestly. Yeah, this team isn't very good. I said 8-4 at the beginning of the year. I'm going to be off by a game. I said going into the year, Missouri, LSU, the two biggest overrated teams in the SEC. Nailed that one. They're not very good, neither of them. So I have Missouri at number 12. Number 11, I do have Florida. If this team probably pushes up a little bit further, if that game was a little bit cleaner yesterday. Not a super clean game, but they got the W versus that LSU team. The time of possession is crazy to look at. It's like 41 minutes to LSU for 19 minutes to Florida. LSU kind of controlled the game, but Florida was able to hit explosive plays and be able to keep DJ Lagway clean, where Garrett Nussmeier turned the ball over, got sacked 6 or 7 times. That's not going to win this football game. So I have Florida here at 11. And if DJ Lagway was the starter at the beginning of the season, played all the way through and was healthy, I think this Florida team probably could have won 7-8 games. Like, he is that talented. And this team next year, I think they win 8 or 9 games. And if they get the right pieces around them in the transfer portal, they might be able to win 10 games next year. That's how damn good I think DJ Lagway is. We'll see what happens the rest of the year. I do have Arkansas still above them just because I think Arkansas is a more well-balanced team right now. I think a lot of the reason Florida is my number 11 team is because DJ Lagway. If he's not there, they're really not that talented of a football team right now, whereas Arkansas is way more well-balanced. Like, Jaquindon Jackson is better than the best running back at Florida, whether that's Montrell Johnson, Ball or Jacoby Jackson. I don't know. Take your pick. Jaquindon Jackson's better. I'll take Andrew Armstrong over any of the wide receivers Florida have, even though I think the trio is better there. I think the upper end talent's better at Arkansas. And then Landon Jackson's better on the defensive line than anyone Florida has. I will say Florida is deeper talented, and I think it'd be a close game between the two teams. But guys, this is hard to do. Like, if you want to argue and say Arkansas's 11 and Florida's 10, that's fine with me. Hell, if you wanted to put Florida here, I still believe LSU slightly more talented. I think this was on a neutral field. LSU would have won the football game. But throw all these teams in a bag at this point. Doesn't really bother me. To me, I always try to do the top end better than the bottom because the bottom's really hard to rank. Like, again, throw all these teams in a bag and see who comes out. It really is hard to do. Number 8, I have Vanderbilt. Again, I think this is a tier 8, 9, 10, 11 is a debate. You can debate them no matter where you, whatever spot you want to put them in. Vanderbilt plays LSU. I'll probably drop it, or I will drop them if they lose. We'll see what happens in that game. Guess what? LSU struggles with running quarterbacks. Guess what? Diego Pavia does pretty well. He runs the football pretty damn well. That dude is a gamer. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he does versus that LSU defense, which has made progress. But like I told LSU fans, you're not going to go leaps and bounds in one offseason. It's going to take you 3 years to get where you want to go on the defensive side of the ball. They've gotten about 10% better, which is to be expected. There's no team that gets 50% better in one offseason. We'll see what happens. Number 7, I have Texas A&M. I think Marcel Reed's the answer, but until I see him play, like, we'll see him play Texas. We'll see how he does. Because I think my defense is the best or second best in the SEC. I think it's a top 5 defense in the country. You have an argument to be number 1 if you're at Texas. They've been phenomenal defensive efficiency. They are number 1 in the SEC. They're number 1 pass defense in the SEC. So it's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be a really run-heavy game in that game for Texas A&M, and we'll see if they can get away with it. They could get away with it versus LSU because LSU is not a very good defense. Can they get away with it versus the Tennessees of the world, the Texas of the world, the Ole Miss of the world? We'll have to see. They couldn't get away with it versus the team above them, South Carolina. And South Carolina has the best front 4 in the country. Dylan Stewart, Kennard off the edge, phenomenal players. Their back end actually doesn't get enough love either. I think they have 2 guys, a cornerback and a safety, rated in Pro Football Focus top 5 defensive backs in the SEC. So they're really good on the back end as well. Lenora Sellers played out of his mind yesterday. Rocket Sanders seems to be getting healthy. I don't know if he has a year left. If you can give me Rocket Sanders and Lenora Sellers with another year and Nick Harbor finally getting used to wide receiver, I think this team can be pretty damn scary next year. They have the same exact schedule. Just rotate the road games for the home games. That's what you get. So it's going to be interesting. Number 5, I have Tennessee. And the biggest issue I have with Tennessee, quarterback. Nico just isn't ready yet, guys. He's just not. Everything else about this team is pretty damn good. The offensive line's gotten better. Dylan Sampson is a stud. Defense is phenomenal. It's one of the 2 to 3 best in the SEC. It's Nico. He's not good enough yet. And it sucks to hear that as a Tennessee fan, but I think he'll be better next year. The problem is you're going to have to rely on him more because you're going to lose some of that defensive talent, if not most of it. Number 4, I have Alabama. I think they're being propped up by that LSU win. That game told me nothing. It was in the rain versus a bad LSU defense that did not make any adjustments, and Jalen Milroe could just run all over him. Jalen Milroe's not going to be able to do that 3 to 4 games in a row in the college football playoff. He's not. He's either going to get hurt or a team's going to stop it, and they're going to make him rely on his arm, which has gotten better, but it still is not great. So I have Alabama number 4. Number 3 is Georgia. And if Georgia shows me what they did this week versus Tennessee next week, they will be my number 1 team because that was the best version of Georgia we have seen all year. It was the most scary version of Georgia we have seen all year. It was the most well-balanced version of Georgia we have seen all year. They had the offense going and they had the defense going. Now, was the defense 100% like they were a Texas game? No, but they were like 90% of that. And then the offense, to me, hit their ceiling yet last night. So if that version of Georgia shows up, I think they can beat anyone in the country. Problem is, you have yet to show me that version of Georgia consistently, so I cannot put you at number 3 because I have to look at your average version of your team this year, and that's why I have Texas actually at number 2. I've knocked them down from number 1, and I'm just looking at your average game this year. And I think Texas, if they played their average game, Georgia played their average game, I do believe we would beat Georgia. And I know Georgia fans are going to get pissed off that yada, yada, yada. You played a better game that night, and that is why you won that football game. You played a much better game, honestly. Texas played terrible on the offensive side of the ball. Did Georgia play great? No, but they still play better in Texas because they could actually move the football. And I'm just doing this based off your average football game that I've seen. The best version of Georgia would beat the best version of Texas. Absolutely. But what we saw is like a D+ version of Texas versus a C+ version of Georgia, and that's why Georgia won that football game. If we just take the average, if we both would have played C games, I think Texas could compete, if not win that game. Or if we played a little bit above average and you played below average, I think we could win that football game. And if you want to put Georgia number 2, go ahead. I'm not going to argue with you. Again, guys, this is hard to do. I think 1 through 4, you can argue. I think Bama, Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, throw them in a bag, see who comes out. Ole Miss, I can't really say anything right now. Like, do I believe they're going to win the national championship? No. I don't believe Lane Kiffin's that good of a coach, honestly. But that defensive line is scary. If Jackson Dart can just hang on to the football, not turn it over, do what he's supposed to do in that Lane Kiffin offense, kind of what Quinn Ewers has to do in the Texas offense, I think they can compete for the national championship. At the end of the day, do I think they will? No. But right now, I have to put them at number 1. They've been the most consistent team throughout the last couple of weeks. They've played really well, and I have to move them up to number 1. If Texas would have stomped the throat on Arkansas like they should have, they had a chance to go into halftime up 21-24-0. I would still have Texas number 2 or number 1 here, but they weren't able to do that, and that's why I have Ole Miss number 1. So again, guys, debate in the comments. I mean, it's hard to do, guys. It really is. You can debate most of these. There's a couple you can't, like South Carolina at 6, I'm pretty firm on. I don't really see where else they'd go. Mississippi State at 16, Kentucky at 15. Everything else is pretty damn debatable, and that's why I make this video, for you guys to debate. So again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This has been another edition of the SEC Power Rankings, and I hope you enjoyed them. Thank you for sticking around, guys.